What I'm going to talk to you to tonight, it's more of a talk than a demonstration because I'm really not going to even turn the lathe on. But I wanted to talk about maintaining your lathe and things you can do to help it work better for you. I did get over into the learn and turn a little bit and saw some things that I'm going to talk about as well. First of all, is I left it dirty for on purpose. A lot of times I have seen where the lathes that have the motor located right here under the ways, the chips will get impacted around the back side of that motor. In here, there's an opening, and I've seen the chips pile up in there. And I actually have the small Ricon that's similar to this. That every once in a while I get a little lackadaisical and I don't clean it out long enough. But you want to keep that area clean around that motor because the motor, if it's got chips packed in around it, it'll tend to heat it up, and you know, we all know that heat in electric motors aren't conducive to good longevity. So I try to make sure when I'm using my little lathe that I clean that area out occasionally, and it's a simple way of doing it is just I keep a brush. I have a magnetic thing here by both of my lathes, and I can just put this on and I just pull it out, and I can take it and clean that out of there in a split second or two, and presto, it's good as new. Again, there's not much in there tonight, but if you don't do that on a regular basis, it can be a problem for your motor. The other thing that I don't think a lot of people new to the hobby think about, at least, and you know, is keeping your ways lubricated, the bed of the lathe lubricated, so that everything slides a lot easier. It doesn't take that long to do, and you don't need any special chemicals. Well, you need special chemicals. You need some sort of a wax or a lubricant of some kind, and it can be anything from, I know guys that use WD-40 with silicone in it, or plain old WD-40. That'll work. There's no reason that doesn't work. The only reason I don't typically do that is because it never dries. And if you put it on really thick, it attracts dust, and then it becomes like a sludge, and it gets underneath your banjo or your tailstock, and it actually can kind of goof things up. So I have had pretty good success with using material, a couple of different things I've tried through the years, but right now my hot thing is this, it's called Slip It. So this stuff, has anybody ever used this or seen it? It works pretty good. If you're not familiar with it, I have found over time that what works best, I think, is a little bit goes a long way. And if you put it on too thick, you kind of run into the same problem you run into with WD-40. You create a slurry, and it can get kind of. But I just take a rag, take a little bit of that, and I just put her on the ways. It'll help. If you've been turning wet wood, or if you're going to be turning wet wood, I should say, it'll help keep the ways from getting that early initial coat of rust on them, although you don't want to leave the shavings sitting on there very long anyway. So I strongly encourage you, if you're going to be turning wet wood, keep your lathe bed clean, because it doesn't take long at all for rust to develop.
Yeah, particularly with oak or cherry.
Right. So I mean, there's literally nothing on there, but it's enough to do what I wanted to do tonight, or today, and I do this, well, I'd like to tell you I do it every time before I start turning. I'm going to tell you that I do it every time, but in reality, I do it a couple of times a week, so it's not like I do it. But the next thing I'm going to get to, I do that every time I start turning. And I just leave that on there for a minute or two. While that's kind of drying, actually, I will take it, when I do this, I will take a little bit and put it right on here. Get it so that'll help that slide a little better. Same thing on the banjo. The banjo surface is very minimal on these things, but. And another thing, while you've got your banjo off, this slides back and forth, and it doesn't hurt to snitch a little bit of this on there, on the shaft going through, to help the clamp slide along.
Mike, do you have to dry it or wipe it off after you put it on?
Well, what I did this, and I did those, and if we talk for 30 seconds or a little bit more, it's going to be dry enough to wipe it off. So I give it a couple of minutes. It's plenty of time. So I give it a couple of minutes, let it dry, and I use a paper towel because I can see if I'm picking up any dust or dirt or anything like that, which says, yeah, it's a little bit there. Thank you, I'm glad I saw it. So while I was doing that, this is probably ready to come off because it really doesn't take, if you put it on thick, it does take a long time for it to dry. As I said earlier, it never does dry. So that's why I put a very thin coat of that on. Same thing here. Get that all going good. It's ready to go back together. These lathes are, the beds on these lathes are a milled surface. So nothing really slides all that great on them anyway, but that's okay. They are what they are. They work good they work good for what they're designed to do. There you go. All right. So everything's back together. Everything's lubricated. Slides along nice and free. There's no nicks or dings in the bed. I'm happy with that. So the next thing I want to focus on is my tool rest. I meant to bring my robust one and I forgot it. Most of you know that they make them with a nice hardened rod in here, and that, you know, the robust ones, and other companies are coming out with them now. So it's a hardened rod, and it theoretically doesn't get any dings or wear in it, although it's a hardened rod. But if you've got a turning gouge that's hardened steel, they're pretty much within the same ballpark of each other. So if you get a serious catch and you whack that tool down on that hardened rod that you can't supposedly ding, you can ding it. And do not ask me how I know that, because no, I have done it, so it does happen. But
You're supposed to shield it with your finger in that.
yeah, oh yeah, ask this one. This is a regular cast tool rest, so it's fairly soft. It's got some, you know, it's used by a lot of different people, so it does have some nicks and dings in it. And I always keep a file around. I'm sure we all have them in our shops somewhere. And what I try to do with the tool rest like this is I just slowly. If they're real bad, you know, obviously it takes a little longer, and you can tell right off that just takes the little catches. And it's amazing to me what the slightest indentation on your tool rest will cause as you're dragging that gouge across, and it hits that thing, and it hesitates or it jumps forward on the minimal of damage. So you want to get that good and clean, have it nice and smooth, or as smooth as you can get it. And you don't want to use a real rough file. You want to use a metal cutting file.
You ever use your grinder, your tool grinder to do that?
Well, you can, but it's good. To me, you could possibly create a real low spot in a real hurry. With the file, you're less likely to have that happen. And if you noticed, I didn't stop. I just kept going away straight across. I'm glad you asked that question. And then you're not, you know, because if I had a real ding here and I sat there and I went like this and this, now I'm going to have a low spot there, and I don't want that. That feels a lot better. So the next thing I like to do is I got that this is something I do every time I go to my lathe. I wax this. And the reason I wax this, and remember I was telling you I was going to show you something that you were doing that I forget your name, but you. Mike, it's Mike. You were having trouble getting your hand to slide. This is why, what I do to help prevent that is to wax all this before I start turning. And your finger will lay on there and slide a lot easier. Just this little coat of wax. Now I use this Renaissance wax, which don't ask me why, well, I know how I got started using it, and I never really figured out why I use it, because it's the most expensive wax I think they sell, but it works for me. For some reason it works really good. Years ago, Ken Dubé down in Connecticut had a guy, Mark somebody or other, he's from West Virginia, and he was a professional wood turner. I cannot think of his last name. Anyway, he did a demo for the clubs in the area at this guy, Ken Dubé, who used to live down in Connecticut. And Mark did this every time he started turning, and I went home and started doing it myself. And this is what he used, so that's how I got hooked on that. You don't have to use this. You can use any wax that you have. If you have Butcher's bowling alley wax, I think you could do it, although I think that tends to be less slippery than this does.
Why don't you use the slip it stuff?
Well, you could. It's habit. I should have brought that up. You can use that you can use whatever you want on here. The slip it probably would work. This is what I've gotten in the habit of using more so than anything. And the idea is to create something on here that'll help your tool slide a little easier. And that stuff dries in a millisecond. So if I were going to turn something, it's like butter on there right now. It just slides across there slicker. As the old saying goes, it's slicker than snot. This tool rest in particular, the spot that you would want your finger to be running on is a cast surface. It's really rough. Short of spending a week with a hand grinder, smoothing that thing out, I don't know how to get it any better other than when I'm using a tool rest like this, I avoid that by putting my finger up on the, well, it's in that groove, but my thumb is on the top and it's kind of guiding things along better, more so than the finger in that groove that's made for it. By the way, if somebody doesn't know, it's grounded a radius, and that's so that your finger can slide in there. Okay, so you want to keep the area around your lathe clean for obvious reasons. Hey, you know what? This is going to be our safety minute. How's that? You don't want any cords laying on the floor. If you got the dust collector, you have shop vacs plugged in there, you don't have the cord running across under your feet. You want to have your area where you're working nice and clean and safe. Don't want any trip hazards. That's your safety minute for tonight. The other thing is it's not a cleaning thing. This is just a tip. You're working in this area and you've got your tailstock here and it's got a sharp point on there. And I don't know about anybody else, but I still got dents in that elbow from banging into that thing. So if you take that out, get that out of your way, now you've got a hole in your tailstock that if you don't do something with that, you're going to fill that, you can get chips in there and dust and sawdust and stuff, and that's not good when it comes to putting your live center or a drill chuck or something in there. You want that to stay as clean as you can possibly keep it. How I have found the way that I have found it works pretty simple. You can turn a plug up and put it in there, which is a great idea. I found these, 1.25 inch, 1.5 inch diameter magnets, and I just stick it over the end, and I keep one right here on the front of my tailstock on all three of my lathes. And when I'm not using it, I stick that on there, and it takes less than 2 seconds to put it on there, and it's not a sharp point that you're going to bang into, and it gives you an extra couple of inches of working, particularly on a small lathe like this. It gives you a little bit extra working room without having to take the tailstock off, which when you take it off, sometimes it can be a pain in the neck to get it back on, and yada, yada, yada. again, there are times that you'd have to take it off, but if you want to keep it on there, it just protects that, keeps everything from getting in there, and you don't have to worry about trying to clean that. Because if you need to get in there to clean that, it's like a reamer, tapered reamer with the taper this is a number 2 Morse taper inside of here. And you can buy them with the different tapers, and it just goes in there, and it's like a scraper that would scrape the gungas out of there. But if you don't get the gungas in there, then you don't have to worry about having one of those. So, you've got a chuck. I got it. So, these lathes, what I want to see if these lathes had them. I know some of the lathes don't have it, some of them do. There's a relief at the back end of the threads. And the relief at the back end of the threads is so that you have 2 set screws on your chuck. And that relief is for those set screws to go into, so you can clamp this down. I think it's a good idea to use those screws when you can. This lathe does not have the groove, but it does have enough of a flat there that I think the screws would not mar the thread. But to me, it helps secure it better with those screws being used. A lot of people don't use them, and I understand why, but a lot of what I'm telling you is my personal thoughts on it. I think I mentioned to one of the gentlemen over at the Learn and Turn, if you ask 10 wood turners a question, you're going to get 10 different answers, and they're all going to be right. So that's kind of what I'm talking about tonight. But I use these screws because I think it does 2 things. It helps secure the chuck to the spindle better than not using those screws. And the other thing is, if you have to, when you're putting the chuck on your spindle, if you have to tighten it any more than that, something's not right. You shouldn't have to do that. Occasionally you'll see someone, put the chuck on, lock the spindle, put the chuck wrench in, and they're banging on it. There's a problem somewhere. The problem, I think, more often than not, is that it's dirty. The 2 flats, the flat on your spindle,
What's the manufacturer's intent for those set screws?
to do what I'm suggesting. It's to help lock this chuck to the spindle.
May I have a comment about that?
Yeah?
If you have a reversing lathe and you reverse it to do some sanding or something like that, it can spin off.
It'll spin right off.
Fit off really quick.
Yep. I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't think I wasn't.
And
But
the
if you,
other thing, if you use the set screws, you've got to remember you use them.
yeah,
If you try to take the chuck off,
yeah, yeah.
you'll tear off your spindle.
You'll bugger up those threads in a real hurry. And I didn't bring a thread file to show you how to fix that. So. But back to the really jamming the thing on. This surface here wants to be clean, and this flat surface here wants to be really clean. And if you've got a nick or a ding in either one of those surfaces, you're not going to get a good bite when those 2 come together. So you want to make sure if you have a ding in there or a problem, you want to take that out of there as best you can with a file or something to eliminate it. But you shouldn't have to never should have to tighten it up any more than that. And there's 2 screws, 180 degrees to each other. This chuck's only got 1, but that's all right. And actually, I'm looking into the hole that does not have a screw in it, and it would come down on the thread. So you want to have the spindle. If you don't have the thread, the groove there, you can still use the screws. You just don't want to wrench them down on that thread too tightly. Do I make any sense? The other thing I'd like to do is, and I forgot to bring Do we have a drive center for the lathes in either of those boxes? Thank you. Something else that I have shown before, and see, this spindle could use one of those little reamers. It's just, you know, natural collection of dust in there from use, but we'll get it out. The alignment of your tailstock to your spindle. So a lot of times, you know, as I mentioned earlier, this is a milled surface, and you know, depending on the old joke about you don't want to buy a car that was made on a Monday or a Friday. Same thing with a wood lathe. You don't want to buy one that got milled on Friday because it's cockeyed probably. But a lot of time, my point is, a lot of times this alignment of these two centers is off, and if it's, well, let me put it to you this way. How often have you tried to drill a hole and you get in about 2 inches and it's squeaking like crazy, and when you pull the drill back up, the drill pops over or it goes this way? That's because this alignment's off. And if it's in alignment, it tends to make drilling a little easier, and everything just kind of goes better if these spindles are in centers are in alignment with each other. So one way to check it is to, well, the way I check it is to bring them up close to each other. Now this one it's this way a little bit, not very much. But if I've seen them, in fact, I have one that I have on this side. I have 25 thousandths of shim on it to get it up to where it's in line. It made a world of difference with drilling. This one's not too bad. It's this side I would have to put something under. So I'd just like to show you how I would do it. I'm not going to change this one because this lathe gets moved around all over the place and it's not that far off, so it's not worth trying to fix it. But if you have a lathe that is basically in a parking spot where you leave it all the time, you don't do a lot of moving around and it stays where it is, I would suggest before you change anything here, take a level and check it to see. I'm not necessarily looking for level as in dead level this way. What I'm would be looking for is it's a little low this way here. If I bring it over here, it's a little low too, which that's good. I would, if this were my lathe, I would try and get these two surfaces level. Not worried about it this way so much, but if the reason I would do this or suggest doing this is if you've got a twist in your bed like this, and then you go through the process of lining these up and putting shims under there, and then you move the lathe somewhere else and it goes like that. Now you've lost what you just spent your time trying to do. So if it's a lathe that you move around a lot, you don't really need to do what I'm talking about because it's not worth it if it's going to get moved all over the place. But if it's stationary, I suggest you do that. And then, not so much on a stand like this, but if you have a lathe that has a traditional base on it, like I have a one-way, so it's got feet on it, and you can adjust those feet, and you can take the twist out of that lathe. It still may not line up once you get the twist out of it, but at least if you take the twist out before you shim anything, you'll be in a lot better shape. Because if you shim this and it's like that, and then next week when it's 85 degrees and humid, it's going to be like that, or something like that. So anyway, I think it's a good idea just to double check your level and see how close it is. If it's obviously way out, and you can, you know, that's something you just kind of play with, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But, so if I'm gonna say I'm off a little bit more than I am, but I don't know how far off I am. It's off, you know, looking at it down here, it's, you know, it's not off a 64th of an inch. It's probably off like 10 thousandths maybe. But just so I can show you what I suggest is I have a somewhere I have a feeler gauge. So if I want to guesstimate that I've got to take this side and raise it 10 thousandths, if I take a 10 thousandth shim, stick it under there, I can say, yeah, I'm a little bit too much. So if I take a 8 thousandths shim, let's try 8 thousandths. I really like that. So, the chances of me having 8 or you being able to get, or me having 8 thousandths thick shim stock is slim. But, you can get it. And I've got a package here that's got a bunch of different thicknesses, and I don't remember, I don't know if there's an 8 thousandths in here or not, but I think there's a 7 thousandths. Okay. So, I can take that. I can stick that under there, and I can tighten that up and say it's really, really, really good. So then I can take a piece of this, shear a piece of that off. I goofed up. The two-sided tape that I'm going to use to hold that down is 5 thousandths thick. But you're going to mush it down a little bit, so you got to kind of fudge it. So I would probably put a 5 thousandths thick shim with this double-sided tape underneath this side, and I would put it on, I would stick it on the bottom of that. I would put this back, this would be off the lathe, obviously. I'd put it back on the lathe, and I'd clamp it down, and I'd leave it. I'd do this at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'd leave it overnight just to let it kind of bond better, I guess. And that should help with any drilling issues you're having or alignment problems. You know, you don't notice it so much when you're turning, because you're turning, it's not like a metal lathe where the machine's doing the cutting, you're doing the cutting. So if it's tapered, you can take care of that. You can compensate that with your handle, with your hands. You know, if it's a metal lathe, you can see the taper in a piece. Then you can, you adjust it, different things like that. But any questions?
How about you forgot to take that green wood off your bed? And you go a couple days later and you got
Well,
a Dalmatian bed.
yeah, if you turned that green wood and you left it sitting on your lathe for 3 days, and then you go back and you got a rusty bed, shame on you. My experience has shown me that if I'm turning really, really wet wood, about every 20 minutes I clean it off. If I'm gonna go sneak off and get a donut or something, or go in the house and use the men's room, whatever, I clean it before I go away, and I put something on it. It might be just take a can of WD and squirt it on there.
I have an unheated and uninsulated garage where I work, and so I run into this frequently.
Yeah.
And what I find works really well is WD-40 and then a Scotch-Brite pad.
Yeah.
To drop,
Yep.
wipe it off, and
Yep.
then do your wax after that.
Yep.
But,
Yeah.
And, every winter I go through it, and then I start remembering.
Yeah. Interesting fun fact. Go ahead, Glenn.
We used to run into this as well before we were able to control the meeting in the shop. One of the things with the lathe bed that I found really helpful is if you get a stone rather than Scotch-Brite or sandpaper, because the stone will keep it perfectly flat. so that if you have any burrs, or you have any other anomalies, especially with rust or flash rusting, where you have micro pitting, if you take a stone, I get a diamond stone at Home Depot for $17. Spray a little bit of WD-40 on the ways, and then you use the stone, and in a figure-8 pattern up and down the ways, you therefore can pretty much maintain a flat surface. And that flat surface will make everything else slide a lot smoother than trying to use like a grinder or,
Yeah.
a file or something.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's a great idea.
worked really well for me.
Yeah. Does everybody know what the WD stands for in WD-40? Water displacement. I gotta check my cheat sheet, but I really think that's about all I was gonna talk to you about tonight. Lots of light, back to the, whatever. I got lots of light overhead.
Does the shim stay there? I mean,
Well, that's what the two-sided tape will help hold it on there. It's not carpet tape, but it's like a two-sided tape. Now the last time I did this, I have it with me, it's a plastic shim. The thickness is about 25 thousandths. I think I mentioned the lathe at home, I had to put a piece of that on. And it stays on, the plastic shim stays on pretty good, but if you remove the tailstock too often, it would get bumped up and it pulls it off. So I don't take that tailstock off very often. But
so where would you find shims at that thickness?
let's let him finish and then I'll answer that.
So once it's on there, you gotta always kind of keep it in mind.
Yeah, you got to be aware that it's there. So if you do take your tailstock off, like when you want to lubricate it, you just got to remember it's there and be careful putting it back on. There's this thing called Amazon. You can get anything on Amazon. No, I don't know, Clem. Quite honestly, that little package that I pulled out there, that's something that we had from work, and I haven't, we shut the business down back in 2019, and I took some stuff home with me from there, and I think it was bought from one of the industrial supply houses. There used to be an industrial supply house in Worcester. It was called Industrial Supplies, and my guess is it came from there, but I really don't know where it came from. Yeah, McMaster-Carr would have it. Yeah, that's a place. They got, if they don't have it, nobody's got it.
What about cleaning your chucks? My chucks are starting to get done, so
What kind of chucks do you have?
just the way the chucks are.
No, but I mean, are they
No.
the Novas? I'm not sure how the Novas are set up, but
I've been wired brushing it, but I didn't know if there was any chemicals you could soak them in.
what'd I do?
Generally happens to chucks if they got dust inside
Yeah,
of
that's-
the
Yeah.
worm screw and you need to try to get it out.
On the one-way chuck, you have access to it, to the screws.
Okay.
You can get to them. The Nova, I don't know if you can get to that.
Starting to get
Yeah.
thick.
Well, that's what I mean, a lot of people don't like the one-ways because they are open and the dust can get in there. On the other hand, you can get at it and take them apart and clean them. You were a machinist at one time, so it's all I think. I've taken mine apart, but the Nova, I don't know. I don't know the answer because I don't know how, if that's a sealed back on that or not. Is it sealed? Can you see the screw?
I haven't dug into it yet.
Yeah,
There might be a snap ring.
yeah. There's a snap ring that holds this gear. The gear works. Is that a Nova? Yeah, that's a Supernova. Yeah, that's yours? Yeah, they come apart pretty easy. I can see where the dust could get in there in a real hurry, though. I don't know the answer to that, so I won't try and I don't want to say something that I don't know anything about it, so I'd rather than say I don't know. I'm guessing there is a big snap ring there, so I'm guessing that if that snap ring comes off, that back might come right out of there.
I seem to remember taking one apart, but I can't remember the details.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never had a Nova chuck, so I don't know the answer. Yeah?
Just want to make one comment about using set screws to not the chuck.
Yeah.
Even if you're not running it backwards, something I found that happens, if you run it at high speeds and then you shut the lathe off, it can actually, the momentum
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
chuck can actually spin it off.
Yeah. I've heard of that. I've never seen it happen, but I have heard of that happening.
That'll get your attention.
Yeah.
Just a dumb question, but when you're wearing a mask, glasses not getting fogged up?
What's that?
When you're wearing a rescue mask, especially for glasses not getting fogged up?
Yeah. My glasses always fog up when I have a face shield on.
So how do you fix that?
Don't wear a face shield.
I have a power band face shield.
I have a head respirator that I wear, 3M thing I think it's, and that draws a curtain of air down, so that prevents my glasses from fogging. But if I have a bubble face shield that I really like because it's big and it's away from my face, but even that fogs up on me. So
There's a product that scuba divers use that is anti-fog, and it works pretty well, but
yeah,
it's never crystal clear.
yeah,
In the water, the mask is crystal clear, you don't even see it.
yeah,
But on your glass, I tried it.
yeah,
Yeah, it tracks shots too.
yeah.
Yep.
Is that it?
Do you do anything for your belt, the drive belt?
Well, yeah, my old Delta lathe, you can't get at the foolish thing. I don't typically I haven't run into issues with it, so I don't fool around with it a lot. But I do suggest you make sure the pulleys stay clean, and the belt wants to be tight enough to drive the lathe, but it doesn't need to be overly tight. I don't think you can really, by hand, get it too overly tight, but, it's dragging down on the bearings. It's the only thing I can think of. Yeah, that's about all I can suggest. I haven't been lucky. I have never had to change one, so, although,
Lubricate in there?
what's that?
Do you lubricate in there?
No.
Bearings or anything?
No, the bearings should all be sealed bearings, so you shouldn't have to lubricate in there. If you lubricate the pulleys and you get oil, gets on the belt, that's no good. And if it does slip, belt dressing will help, but I've never had to do that.
These two lathes, they're gravity tightened.
Yeah,
It's the weight of the motor that.
right, that should be tight enough. The only thing to the belt is, again, that's making sure it's clean down on that bottom pulley, because this opening right here goes right directly to that lower pulley. And that area can get clogged up pretty quick if you spend a lot of time turning. So I highly recommend cleaning that area on a regular basis. How many people have like small lathes like this that they're turning on? Yeah, so it's worth bringing up for discussion. The more maintenance you do on it, the longer it's going to last you. So why not take care of it? They don't give these things away, so it's worth putting a few extra minutes in each week. Clem?
My chuck's got like a set screw in it,
Yeah.
and I was using it, then I saw it marred the shaft.
The threads?
Yeah. Is it worth it? Just ignore it or leave the set screw? I have never had a problem.
Well, if you mar the threads, Reed brought up the point, if you have the screws tight and you forget and you go to back the chuck off, the screws come up and they bump into the threads and they'll bugger the thread. They make what's called a thread file. It's a triangular shaped file that you can literally file that thread back into usable.
Maybe not use the set screw, just ignore it.
Yeah, but that's your personal decision, because if you have a lathe that'll reverse, as we were talking, or even if it's not too tight and you shut it off, the centrifugal force can spin that chuck on you.
Some of the bigger lathes actually have a notch in the spindle where.
Right. Yeah, that was my whole point. lathes now have a groove that screw goes right down into.
Yeah, you don't have to crank your set screw, don't over tighten it.
No.
It's just till it bottoms out.
Yeah,
Crank it and try to put
Yeah.
a mark in it.
yeah,
All it's doing is providing, some friction so that if
yeah,
it does hit the threads, it's gonna help you. You
Yeah.
don't have to crank it tight, I mean, literally just barely finger tight
Yeah,
enough is it.
it's just so that it goes into that groove, and if you are spinning in reverse like AJ brought up, it can't back off and come flying off on you. Because it's amazing, depending on your RPM, if that chuck comes loose, it's amazing how quickly that thing gets to the end of that thread. And you go, whew, that wasn't good.
Mike, I've heard for alignment purposes, your tailstock, left and right, you can, depending on how far it's out, you can dimple the inside. Is that a good practice, bad practice?
The inside of,
The tailstock, where it goes between the...
where it lines up on here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard of doing that, but you could, I guess.
Just to kind of keep it in alignment, if there's any kind of play in there.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. I hadn't contemplated that. It's manufactured so that there's really virtually not a lot of play there. So if you
Right.
dimpled down in here, I think it might correct it, but in my opinion, it might also exaggerate it, make it even worse. So if you can take this and tip it up or back or forth and get it in line with that, at least it's gonna be a lot closer.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you do anything to maintain the jaws on the chuck?
I do. I typically take the jaws off, not on a regular basis, like not every day or anything, even once a week or whatever. But every once in a while, I take them off, and I have one-way chucks. So every once in a while, I take the jaws off, I back the master jaws all the way out, and I clean the scroll in behind them, and clean the back side of the master. The master jaw, if you don't know what I'm talking about, is the piece that's riding in the scroll in the chuck. It's the thing that the jaws are bolted to, is known as the master jaw. But I take the jaws off occasionally, clean behind them, make sure everything's all right. If nothing else, just to clean the screws out. The other thing that I do, I was a machinist when I got paid to be a machinist when I was a working man. And in the machining world, your master jaws are numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. And they say on the woodchuck, you don't need to have your jaws numbered, which I guess you really don't, but I do. I number my jaws. So the same jaw goes on the same master jaw every time I use the chuck. And it's because I was a machinist and I ran lathes for 50 years that's what I learned, and that's why I do that. But I'm not saying you have to do that, but I recommend you take an electric pencil and mark it, or however you want to mark it.
The one-way is not marked.
No, the Nova.
Not-
The Nova's are marked.
Yeah, the chuck is marked, but the individual.
The individual jaws are not marked on the one-way?
On the Nova.
Oh, on the Nova?
They're stamped on the back side.
They're not.
Where are the numbers, do you know?
They're stamped on the back side where it gets...
On the back side?
stamped
Okay.
in.
Underneath, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't want anybody to see.
Well, I think that's a good idea. I don't know why one-way doesn't do it.
Well, the other thing that can happen with jaws is on this one.
Right, but that's the master jaw.
Right.
Those have numbers on it, but these don't. When you buy those, they don't have, so I number those so that they match up. Yeah.
But they're all the same.
No, they're not. First of all, one of those jaws on a one-way has a little pin on it. So I always put the pin in jaw number 4 because number 4 there's a slot that's the longest slot. But again, it's just my belief that each one, if you put it on the same master jaw every time, it's going to run the same every time.
Okay.
It's a personal thing. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm just suggesting it.
I get it.
Yeah?
I mean, the serrated jaws on chucks can also build up, wood particles and
Yep.
sanding dust.
Yep.
And after a while, they're not gonna be gripping as well because there's already
Right.
stuff there.
So that, to your point, that's another reason to take them off. The dust gets behind the between the master jaw and the jaw that you've attached. If you get that sawdust gets in between those, then they're not sitting properly. You're not getting as good a grip as you could.
You can get resonance from the wood.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that go haywire. Yeah.
So, when you said you clean it, are you using like a toothbrush or?
Yeah, I use a toothbrush.
Electric?
I have I actually have a little brass scrub brush that you can buy them at Harbor Freight. You get a plastic one, a steel one, and a brass one for like $9.99 or whatever. And I have one hanging right near the lathe that I use, or on my bench where I would do this. The other thing that I didn't do, and I'm not going to do, but sometimes your tailstock quill gets gummed up in there, and because this has threads in it, and there's a stud or a bolt that's moving this in and out. If that gets gummed up, you can take this. This will just keep turning this till this will all come out. Some of them have a screw here. You got to take the screw out, but I don't think this one does. This is riding in this slot, so you got to back those off a little bit. But you can take this out, clean the hole, and then I have a, I don't think I brought it. I have when we cleaned out that shed, I found a new one because I'd lost mine. The little kits that they clean guns with, and they get those little wire brushes. And you take that little wire brush and you can kind of reach up in there and clean stuff out. And then you can take, I use beeswax and put beeswax on that little brush and just kind of scrub it around in those threads. And it should help that quill move back and forth a lot easier. If it doesn't, you can take the quill, the bolt out itself and clean that too. You've got an owner's manual, it'll tell you how to do that. You remove these screws, and then I think there's a snap ring on the back side. I forget exactly how it works, but that's something that on occasions you might have to do that too. Yeah.
When you're talking about aligning the centers up, do you make any effort to make sure the quill is running coaxial with the headstock?
Well, I think that was Robert's point too, is by shifting the tailstock this way or that way. There's not a lot of play to do that. I think I'd be more concerned with making it worse before I made it better. But yeah, I mean, that could be another impediment to easy drilling. But I've found the few times that I've had to do it and the changes that I've made on my lathes at home, by just getting the two centers lined up, it just makes drilling a whole lot easier. If you're going in 4 inches, the drill's going to be doing this by the time it gets down there anyway. Not all the time, but some of the time. But if you're drilling through it 2 inches or something like that, I find it drills a heck of a lot easier when they're in alignment with each other. But it's possible if your tailstock is way off on the axis. Yeah, I guess that's the Z-axis we used to refer to it. Anything else I don't know about? Thank you.